Hi, everyone, I'm Michelle, 20F, and I really need your opinions. I have an older sister Emily, 25F, who's supposed to be getting married to Jonathan, 25M. Everything seemed perfect between them, they'd been together for years and we all thought they were meant for each other. But recently, things have taken a really strange and unexpected turn, and now their wedding is in jeopardy. The reason? Jonathan has refused to marry my sister because she won't allow me to attend their wedding. On top of that, Emily believes Jonathan is in love with me. I know how insane that sounds, but let me explain. To give you some background, I'm not close to my sister or my parents. It's not like anything dramatic happened to cause a fallout, but once I got into college, I kind of drifted away from them. In fact, I've barely been home since I moved out for school. Most spring breaks, instead of going back home, I'd either travel or head to my grandparents' house. It just felt like a better option than dealing with the awkwardness that would come from being at home. The thing is, my parents and sister are completely different people from me. We've never really fit together, if that makes sense. They've got their own little world that I don't really belong to. I've always felt like they never understood me and honestly never even tried. Growing up, they would all bond over stuff that I didn't care about, and whenever I brought up something I was interested in, it was like I was speaking a foreign language. They'd just listen, nod, and change the topic back to whatever they were interested in. So after a while, I stopped trying. Here's what hurts the most though, when I started pulling back from them, they didn't even try to reach out to me. It was like they were perfectly okay with me distancing myself, almost like they were happy to have me out of their lives. And honestly, that stung. You'd think family would notice when one of their own is slowly drifting away, but they didn't seem to care. It just confirmed what I'd felt all along, that I didn't really belong with them. It got to the point where I only visited them for major holidays, birthdays, and other celebrations. But even then, it felt more like I was just a guest in their lives. I'd show up, do the family thing, and then leave. The conversation was always polite but surface level. There was no warmth, no real connection. And Emily and I? We never had that close sister bond that a lot of siblings have. She's always been the golden child in the family, the one who followed the path my parents wanted, did everything right, and fit perfectly into their world. I was always the odd one out, the black sheep. It's not that they're bad people or anything, but they can be real bullies in the way they subtly put me down. You know those little comments that seem innocent on the surface but hit deep? Yeah, that's what I'd get. So over time, I figured it was just better to spend as little time with them as possible. Why put myself in a situation where I feel unwelcome and out of place? The thing is, last Christmas, Jonathan joined us for Christmas dinner, and honestly, it was the first time in a long time that I didn't feel completely invisible. My family has this way of making me feel like I don't belong, like I'm an outsider in my own home, but Jonathan didn't treat me that way. He was genuinely nice to me, talked to me like I was a normal human being, not like the weird black sheep that I always feel like around my family. At first, I didn't think much of it, I mean, it was just basic decency, right? But for some reason, this really bothered Emily. It's not like Jonathan and I were having some deep, intimate conversation, we just talked about random stuff, travel, school, some funny things that happened at work. You know, normal stuff. But Emily, she immediately got weird about it. She kept giving me these icy looks throughout dinner, but I tried to ignore it. That was until later in the evening when she straight up confronted me. I'll never forget it, she pulled me aside and said, "I know what you're doing. You've always been jealous of me, and now you're trying to steal my man." I was honestly in shock. I mean, steal her man? Where did that even come from? I laughed it off and told her she was being ridiculous, but she wouldn't drop it. She kept going on about how Jonathan was acting different when he was around me and how I was being too friendly with him. I didn't even know how to respond, it was such an insane accusation. Like, where was this even coming from? Emily has always had this thing where she's the center of attention, she's the perfect one, the one who my parents adore, and I get it, she's their golden child. But accusing me of trying to steal her fiancé? That was a new low, even for her. I tried to brush it off though, like I usually do with her drama. It's not like we're close anyway, so I figured she was just being paranoid or insecure for whatever reason. But here's the thing, after that night, things got weird between all of us. Emily became even more distant, which I didn't think was possible. We were never close to begin with, but now it was like she was actively avoiding me. If I tried to talk to her, she'd give me these one-word answers or act like she couldn't be bothered. At family gatherings, she'd be glued to Jonathan's side, almost like she was marking her territory. It was ridiculous. Jonathan, on the other hand, acted like nothing had changed. He was still polite, still friendly, still normal around me. I guess what really bothers me is how quickly my family seemed to side with Emily on this. I mean, no one ever said anything directly to me, but there were little signs. My mom would give me these weird looks whenever Emily and Jonathan were around. My dad, who's usually pretty neutral, started making more comments about how it's important for family to support each other, or how relationships need to be respected. It was all very passive-aggressive. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I've never been the type to get involved in anyone's drama, let alone my sister's relationship. I mean, I barely even talk to Emily outside of family functions, so why would I suddenly be interested in her fiancé? It made no sense. A few months later, I found out from my grandparents that Emily was engaged. Yep, my own sister didn't even bother to tell me she was getting married. I mean, at this point, I wasn't exactly expecting her to send me a personalized invitation with hearts and glitter or anything, but still, finding out from my grandparents felt like a punch to the gut. You know, the kind that confirms everything you already suspected about your family not caring about you. I guess I'd been holding on to some small hope that even with all the tension and distance, she'd still consider me part of this major event in her life. I thought, hey, we're sisters, right? Even if we're not close, I'm still her family. But no, that was clearly too much to ask for. I didn't say anything to Emily when I found out about the engagement at first. I thought maybe she was just busy with wedding planning, or maybe it slipped her mind to tell me. I know that sounds naive, but for some reason, I was still giving her the benefit of the doubt. I figured maybe she'd call me eventually, or maybe I'd at least get a last-minute invitation in the mail. But days turned into weeks, and nothing. Crickets. Then out of the blue, Emily called me. I was honestly surprised to see her name pop up on my phone, especially considering we hadn't really spoken since that weird accusation over Christmas. I answered, trying to act casual like I hadn't been completely forgotten by my own sister. After a few awkward minutes of small talk, she dropped the bombshell, "I'm not inviting you to the wedding." I was silent for a second, trying to process what she just said. I mean, it wasn't like I was super excited to go or anything, but hearing her say it out loud still hurt. I asked her why, and that's when she hit me with the most absurd reason: "Since Jonathan has feelings for you, I don't want you there. It'll just be awkward." I had to laugh, like, literally laughed out loud. I couldn't believe this was happening. First of all, Jonathan doesn't have feelings for me, and even if he did, it's not like I was going to stand up in the middle of the ceremony and profess my undying love for him. The whole thing was so ridiculous that I didn't even want to argue. I just said, "Have a great wedding and happy marriage," and hung up. I didn't need that drama in my life, and honestly, we weren't close, so it didn't really matter to me if I was part of her big day or not. I'd long since come to terms with the fact that Emily and I were living in two completely different worlds. But I just needed to get this off my chest and maybe get some outside perspective. Am I crazy for thinking this whole situation is insane? Have any of you dealt with something similar? Any advice would be appreciated. Update 1: Yesterday was absolutely insane, and I need to get this all out while it's still fresh in my mind. What should have been Emily's rehearsal dinner turned into complete chaos, and somehow, I got dragged into the middle of it all. I was having a perfectly normal Thursday evening, curled up with my laptop working on an assignment, when my phone started blowing up. At first, I ignored it. I've gotten pretty good at that lately. But then I noticed I had 7 missed calls from my dad in less than 10 minutes. Now, my dad never calls more than once. He's the type who thinks if you don't answer the first time, you're probably busy and he'll try again later. So 7 calls? Something was definitely wrong. When I finally picked up, his voice was shaking. I'd never heard him sound like that before. Michelle, you need to come to the venue right now. Right now. He kept repeating it like a broken record. When I asked what was wrong, he just said, "It's about Jonathan and Emily. Please, just come." The desperation in his voice actually scared me a little. But here's the thing, after everything that had happened, after all the drama and accusations and being banned from the wedding, they really expected me to just drop everything and run to their rescue? I told him exactly that. "Dad, I'm not part of this wedding, remember? Emily made that pretty clear." His response: "Michelle, please. Jonathan is refusing to go through with the wedding unless you're there." That stopped me in my tracks. What? Before I could process that bomb, my phone beeped with another call, Mom this time. I switched over, and she was crying. Actually crying. "Your sister needs you," she kept saying, like she'd forgotten how they'd all treated me these past months. It was surreal, listening to her sob about family loyalty and sisterly love when they'd been perfectly fine excluding me until things went wrong. Then Emily called. Her voice was a mess, all choked up and barely coherent. Apparently, Jonathan had arrived at the rehearsal dinner and immediately asked where I was. When Emily told him I wasn't invited, he lost it. Not in an angry way, but in a quiet, disappointed way that was somehow worse. He stood up in front of everyone, their friends, the wedding party, both families, and said he couldn't marry someone who would treat their own sister this way. He said I was cruel, Emily sobbed into the phone. He said he'd been watching how we treat you, and he couldn't be part of a family that would cut someone out like that. He said I was just like Mom and Dad, and he didn't want that kind of toxic behavior in his life. Part of me, a big part, if I'm being honest, felt vindicated. Finally, someone had seen what I'd been dealing with for years. Someone had actually stood up and said it wasn't okay. But Emily wasn't done. Between sobs, she started laying out this elaborate plan about how I could come to the venue and tell everyone there was just a big misunderstanding. How I could say I was the one who chose not to come to the wedding, that it was all my idea. "We can fix this," she kept saying. "Just come tell Jonathan you didn't want to be at the wedding anyway. Tell him I never excluded you. Please, Michelle. I can't lose him." The audacity of it all was breathtaking. After months of acting like I was some kind of man-stealing villain, after explicitly telling me I wasn't welcome at her wedding because her fiancé might have feelings for me, ridiculous, after making me feel like garbage in my own family, now she wanted me to lie to save her relationship? I stayed silent for a long moment, just letting her sob on the other end of the line. Then I said, as calmly as I could, "Emily, I'm not going to lie for you. You chose to exclude me. You chose to treat me like I didn't matter. And now you're facing the consequences of those choices. That's not my problem to fix. But he'll listen to you," she practically screamed. "He trusts you." "Maybe he trusts me because I've never given him a reason not to," I replied. "Maybe he sees something in how you've treated me that makes him question who you really are. Either way, I'm not coming to the venue, and I'm not lying to make you look better." I hung up while she was still protesting. Then I turned off my phone completely, made myself a cup of tea, and sat down to really process what had just happened. Over the next few hours, my phone kept lighting up with notifications when I checked it. Texts from relatives I haven't heard from in years, voice messages from my parents, missed calls from Emily's friends. It was like the whole family had mobilized to try to pressure me into fixing Emily's mess. But you know what? For the first time in my life, I felt completely certain that I was doing the right thing by staying away. Jonathan had seen through their behavior all on his own. He had made his decision based on watching how they treated me, not because of anything I said or did. And honestly, that felt like the most complete vindication I could have asked for. I went to bed last night with my phone still off, and I slept better than I have in months. Let them deal with the fallout of their own actions for once. I'm done being the family scapegoat, and I'm done fixing other people's messes. This morning, I heard through my grandparents, the only family members I'm still in contact with, that Jonathan isn't taking any calls from Emily or my parents. Apparently, he's told his family the wedding is off for good. Emily is devastated, my parents are frantically trying to do damage control, and I'm just here, finally feeling at peace with my decision to stay out of it all. I know this is long, but I needed to get it all out. Thank you to everyone who commented on my last post supporting my decision to maintain boundaries with my family. You were all right, sometimes the best thing you can do is step back and let people face the consequences of their own actions. Update 2. Many of you asked about my childhood and why I've been so distant from my family for so long. I didn't get into it in my original post because it's a pretty heavy story, but I think now is a good time to unpack some of it, especially given recent events. Here's the thing, I have social anxiety disorder. Growing up, I always felt like something was off with me, but I never had the words to explain it. My parents, though, they were old-school people who believed mental health issues were just excuses. They'd often say things like, "You're just being dramatic," or "You need to toughen up." If I was ever visibly anxious or having a panic attack, they'd call me weak or lazy, like I was choosing to feel that way. Looking back, there were so many red flags I can now identify. When I was 15, I had this huge presentation for English class. For someone with social anxiety, the idea of standing in front of 30 students was pure nightmare fuel. The night before, I couldn't sleep. The morning of, I was physically sick. I told my parents, begging to stay home. My dad's response? "Life isn't going to stop because you're nervous. Stop making everything such a big deal." I ended up having a full panic attack in front of the entire class. My hands were shaking so badly I couldn't hold my notes. My voice kept cracking, and some kids started giggling. I could feel the room spinning, but I couldn't escape. When I finally got home, instead of comfort, my mom just said, "See? You survived. All that drama for nothing." Emily, being the perfect sister, made everything worse. She was captain of the debate team, student body president, basically everything I couldn't be because of my anxiety. She'd have these big groups of friends over, and they'd make comments about me being the weird sister who never came out of her room. One time, I overheard Emily telling her friends, "Yeah, she's just antisocial. She thinks she's too good to hang out with anyone." College was my turning point. During my first semester, I had a complete breakdown. The pressure of being away from home, dealing with new social situations, and trying to keep up with classes while managing my anxiety became too much. I remember sitting in my dorm room, unable to breathe, feeling like I was dying. My roommate, bless her heart, noticed something was seriously wrong and practically dragged me to the campus counseling center. That's where I met Dr. Martinez, the first person who really listened to me. She didn't dismiss my feelings or tell me to toughen up. Instead, she helped me understand what was happening to me. After a few sessions, she recommended I see a psychiatrist for a proper diagnosis. Getting that diagnosis, social anxiety disorder, was like finally having a name for the monster I'd been fighting all my life. It wasn't a being dramatic or a seeking attention like my family had always claimed. It was a real condition, and more importantly, one that could be treated. The therapy sessions were eye-opening. Dr. Martinez helped me understand that my family's behavior wasn't just unsupportive, it was actively harmful. She taught me about boundaries, about standing up for myself, about recognizing toxic patterns. That's when I started pulling away from my family more deliberately. But here's what really kills me: when I tried to explain my diagnosis to my parents, they completely dismissed it. My mom actually said, "These doctors are just trying to make money by labeling everything a disease." Emily rolled her eyes and said I was using big words to excuse being antisocial. Last Thanksgiving, before all this wedding drama started, I tried one last time to make them understand. I'd prepared this whole speech about social anxiety, had statistics and research ready. My dad cut me off halfway through and said, "Michelle, when are you going to stop making excuses and start living in the real world?" That's when I truly realized they would never change. They would never try to understand. Their image of me as the difficult child, the dramatic one, the problem, that was set in stone. And you know what? That realization was oddly freeing. It helped me stop seeking their approval or understanding. Looking back now, I can see how this pattern played directly into the wedding situation. Emily's immediate jump to assuming I was stealing her fiancé, my parents' quick acceptance of her narrative without even questioning it. It's all part of their established view of me as the troublemaker, the one who needs to be controlled and managed. Jonathan saw through all of this. He noticed how they treated me, how they dismissed my feelings, how they made me the scapegoat for everything. And unlike everyone else in my family's social circle who just accepted their version of reality, he called it out for what it was: toxic behavior. I guess what I'm trying to say is, this wedding drama didn't happen in isolation. It's the culmination of years of family dynamics where I was always cast as the villain, the problem child, the one who needed to be fixed. And maybe that's why I feel so vindicated by Jonathan's decision. For once, someone else saw what I've been dealing with all these years. So, yeah, that's the backstory many of you asked for. It helps explain why I'm not rushing to fix things now. I've spent too many years trying to fix my family's perception of me, trying to make them understand, trying to earn their approval. I'm done with that now. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is accept that some people will never understand or accept you, even if those people are your family. Update 3, it's been a month since everything fell apart, and I need to share the final chapter of this story. What started as wedding drama has escalated into something I never imagined, but at least now I can say it's truly over. After Emily's wedding was cancelled, she completely lost it. She somehow got hold of my new phone number and leaked it to everyone she knew. Suddenly, I was bombarded with hundreds of hostile messages from her friends, distant relatives, and complete strangers. The threats ranged from guilt-tripping to outright intimidation. Then came the vandalism. First, it was eggs on my car, classic Emily. She used to do this to girls she hated in high school. When that didn't get the reaction she wanted, she escalated. I lost count of how many times I found my car damaged, my mailbox destroyed, or my apartment door covered in nasty notes. The final straw was when she slashed all 4 of my car tires and left a threatening note in her unmistakable handwriting. Throughout all of this, my parents remained willfully blind to Emily's behavior. Their response to every incident was the same: girls will be girls, or you need to be more understanding of your sister's pain. Even when I showed them security camera footage of Emily trying to break into my apartment, they brushed it off as her just wanting to talk. But thanks to this amazing Reddit community, particularly those who advised me to document everything and install security cameras, I was prepared. The lawyer you recommended helped me understand that this wasn't just family drama, it was criminal harassment and vandalism. We built an airtight case with video evidence, photographs, witness statements, and hundreds of threatening messages. When my lawyer sent the cease and desist letter along with our evidence, Emily finally realized she'd gone too far. The security footage of her attempted break-in was particularly damaging. She tried to negotiate through her own lawyer, offering to pay for the damages if I dropped everything. But I refused. This wasn't about money, it was about accountability and consequences. The court case was swift and decisive. Emily was charged with criminal harassment, vandalism, and attempted breaking and entering. She received a 1-year suspended sentence, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order. The judge was particularly harsh given the premeditated nature of her actions and the extensive evidence of escalating behavior. My parents' reaction to the verdict was predictable. They called me heartless for destroying your sister's life over a few pranks. When I reminded them that Emily had systematically harassed me, destroyed my property, and tried to break into my home, they actually suggested I should have just moved away if I felt unsafe. That was the last conversation I ever planned to have with them. The civil suit was settled out of court. Emily had to pay for all the damage she caused, plus additional damages for emotional distress and lost income. I had lost several freelance clients due to her social media harassment campaign. More importantly, the settlement came with a non-contact agreement that extends to our parents. They can't act as intermediaries or flying monkeys anymore. My lawyer suggested that the quick settlement was partly because Emily and my parents were worried about their reputations. Turns out, they care a lot more about what their country club friends think than about actually doing the right thing. Typical. I've since moved to a new apartment in a secure building with 24/7 surveillance. My contact information has been completely changed, my social media is locked down, and my work clients have been wonderfully understanding about the situation. I even got a better job offer from someone who heard about my story and was impressed by how I handled it. The most surprising outcome of all this? I feel free. For the first time in my life, I'm not carrying the weight of my family's expectations and judgments. I'm not the scapegoat anymore. I'm not the difficult child or the dramatic one. I'm just Michelle, building my own life on my own terms. To the Reddit community who supported me through all of this, you quite literally changed my life. Your advice about documentation and security measures made all the difference in court. Your supportive comments helped me stay strong when I doubted myself. And your stories of similar experiences helped me realize I wasn't alone. For anyone else dealing with toxic family members, remember this: sharing DNA doesn't give anyone the right to abuse you. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and let them face the consequences of their actions. It's not about revenge, it's about setting boundaries and demanding respect. My social anxiety is still there, but it's getting better with therapy. Turns out, a lot of it was tied to the constant gaslighting and criticism I grew up with. Who knew that cutting out toxic people could be such effective treatment? Now that this chapter of my life is truly over, I won't be updating anymore. I'm focusing on my studies, my career, and building a new support system of chosen family. To everyone who followed my story and offered support, thank you. You helped me find the strength to stand up for myself and the courage to walk away. They say the best revenge is living well. I'd add that the best closure is knowing you finally stood up for yourself. I'm done being anyone's victim or scapegoat. My life is my own now, and I'm never looking back. Goodbye, Reddit, and thank you for everything.